Hello everybody, this is Josh from 1047, and I'm bringing you some Hearts of Iron 4. This morning I tweeted a picture to Period Flax of the Yogscast, and if you watch any of my Civ videos, you know he's one of my favorite members of that crew. I tweeted him a picture from this game where I had, as Germany, taken over England by spring of 1938, and his response was what you see on the screen right now. So rather than explain in 144 characters how I'd done that, I thought I'd make a quick video. First of all, this is not my idea. I read this on the wiki, but the wiki is kind of vague. It kind of gives you the pointers of what to do, the basics, but it doesn't really show it in action. And as I went to do it the first time last night, it didn't actually work out as it said in the wiki. It was like a bit more of a fight, but I came up with some twists on it to make it a bit easier. So basically from the start, here we go. This is how you do it. This is how I did it. There's probably better ways to do it. You can see once I start the land invasion that's quite messy, but the end results are there. So here we go. Germany taking out England, this time before the end of 1937. Alright, so you start your game. The very first thing you want to do is start grouping up your units. The main thing you want to do is have a unit of 10 infantry. This is going to be your initial invasion force. You'll see later on I kind of made a blunder. It's not a huge thing, but I discovered something later on that meant I didn't have to group everything into 10s, but your first group has to be 10 units, all infantry, and you'll see why later. So I initially group everything up, and I get them all training. You want to train initially because you need about 10 points that you're not going to get through focus, because you need to change the template on your infantry. So I've grouped everyone up. I've assigned some generals. You really can do anything you want, just obviously don't put any of the armor-based generals onto them. So once everyone's grouped up, you want to make sure that your main unit, that main unit of 10, is moved up into the square with the sea base. And then as you can see, I start kind of moving everyone towards that area. So once the initial invasion begins, I don't have to worry about them transporting across the country. They can just hit the seaport and get moving out right from there. Alright, so everyone is grouped up now, and I'm on to research. No real secrets here, just do the basic stuff. I always go for that research boosting in electronics, your 2 constructions, and then the armaments. Get that going. And then for your factories, you want to spam out a bunch of military factories initially. In a normal game, you probably want to do civilian factories, but here we have a decent amount as Germany of civilian factories, and it's going to be about getting out artillery and then later on planes. As this assault goes on. So you see I queue up some artillery, and then the rest of my focus goes into planes. Fighters, close air support, few bombers, but CAS and fighters are going to be your bread and butter for what happens later. So yeah, on to focus. I started with the Rhineland. After that, you probably want to go with Army Innovations and then the Reichsautobahn. Excuse my German, and then continue down that tree into the industrial. By the time you get near the end of that and you got to make decisions, it kind of doesn't matter because you should be close to being done with the UK. From here, it's time to train units. I queued up a lot of infantry because you need them initially. I got a couple tanks, and then you see a lot of horses because you're going to want that, because you're going to need that suppression for the uprisings that are invariably going to happen in England as you start to put them down. I queue up a few other things, but the main thing are the horses and the infantry. So with that all done, crank up the speed and you're ready to go. Here it's time to start paying attention because now becomes a question of timing. You need to watch your political power. As soon as it reaches 50, then you can justify a war. And you want to do that immediately. It's going to go to 51, and then you're going to hit pause. So I crank up the speed and we're off. Alright, so we're at 50 political power now. I've paused and I'm justifying against Sussex. It doesn't seem to really matter. I just read Sussex and I declared against Sussex, and we're off. And now it's just waiting again. You're kind of waiting for events to happen, and it becomes a timing game. So a key thing to note here is every time a focus ends and a new one has the opportunity to be selected, I pause, because unlike research, that's just time you're wasting. Even a couple days here or there can make the difference in a big one, so I pause. Also, I get enough political power to select something new. I took the workhorse because I really like the boost to political power. And if you're going to take the workhorse, you want to take them as early as possible. Now, what I've done here is now I'm looking at the states. So there's 2 ways you can go about this after you take out England. You can go about the rest of Europe, or you can immediately turn around and start attacking the states. With what I'm doing here is I'm influencing them to become fascist. This almost always works if you do it early enough, and it's a big feather in your cap, especially if you're playing the German Reich and you've got a chance to invite them to join you. That said, even if you want to still invade them, it doesn't matter. They can be fascist and you can invade them, that's fine. But it's always good to have the option. If it doesn't seem like you're going to get there in time, having the option to have them join the Axis is a lot better than the alternative. Because soon they're going to be probably the only threat left over. Them in Russia. You also saw with the first 10 points I got from the training that I added recon to my infantry units. Alright, so Army Innovations is done. I'm on to Reichsautobahn, and you're going to continue down that tree. So as your research comes up, right now you're just going to continue following industrial lines and research. I also improved the artillery here because you're going to be using some of that in your invasion. Alright, so from Army Innovations we've got another 15 points, and so now we're going to use it to switch 2 of our infantry into artillery. So now we have a combat width of 20, and we've got all the things we want to add. So that unit is done. That's your basic assault unit that you're going to be using from here on in your invasion of England. So now you can get everyone out of training because they're using resources to make equipment as they do it. So now it's all about arming these guys and getting them upgraded. Alright, so here you can see I'm checking the date. October 6th is going to be a very big day. So Italy is just taken on Ethiopia. I kind of use this as a 2-minute warning, if you will, to kind of get prepared. So now what I'm doing is I'm getting that initial army of 10, and I'm prepping the sea assault right now. So as soon as I declare war, those guys can launch on day 1. They're ready to go. You're looking at this particular square. This is a sea base near Greater London. It can be a hard grab sometimes, but it's very important because not only does it have a sea base, it has a huge airport available, and that's going to be the key to your taking southern England. That was also a good time to do some house cleaning on your fleets. You don't have to move them anywhere yet, but just get them sorted out because they're going to be very important. Also, I started moving some planes around. There's essentially 2 or 3 air bases in eastern Germany where you want to move them all to, because having air superiority over the English Channel is going to be key for the first couple days of the invasion. So once that's all sorted out, unpause, and you're ready to go. Alright, so we've got some political power now, and initially for the first couple buys I got stuff to help the growth, political power and industry. Now you're on the cusp of going to war, so it's about time to grab someone that's going to help. Now if you look in the military high command, there is a dude in there that's going to give you infantry, division attack, and defense. I grab him. I'm not an expert on this stuff, but he seemed like a really good dude to grab. So I recommend him if you're not sure what to do. If you can find better, go ahead and grab it. There's another one that gives you bonus organization and like resistance to attrition and stuff like that. There's a bunch of good stuff, but this guy seemed like the best. You're going to be using a ton of infantry to make your push into England. So around late September, I slowed the game down to 3, because you don't want to miss anything here. It's going to get really crazy now. Alright, so the time has come. You can now declare war on the United Kingdom. So this is where everything kind of kicks off now. You got to pause the game, obviously, because there's going to be so much going on. Now there's a few things you need to do before you can go crazy. First off, declare war. That's kind of the first important thing to do, obviously. Second, it's time to get your planes in the air. You want to flood all the sea between you and England with planes for air superiority. Fighters, bombers, close air support, very important, and of course your naval bombers. Get them anywhere you can. That's why you got them in those northeast bases, so they've as much range as possible. After the planes are done, it's time to switch to your navies. I took my main fleet with all the capital ships and that, and moved it into the English Channel. I moved my main fleet of submarines into the North Sea, and I put my next fleet of submarines into the English Channel. These guys are going to die, so don't get attached to them. They're just clog the lanes so you can punch those troop convoys through. And I set them all for patrols, so they're not really doing anything special. They're just there to like, go, shoot me. So when that's all sorted out, the last thing you want to do is click on attack on your initial invasion force. The plan should have been done weeks ago, so they're ready to go. And when you unpause, if everything has gone right and you've got enough air superiority and enough ships clogging the lane, those guys will leave. And then the fun starts. Alright, so here you are. Your force is about to hit England. This battle can take a while. It can be scary. It can switch back and forth. Sometimes you'll even lose and you have to retreat. That's alright, because you got secondary forces ready to go. I've had to do it where I've had to actually go twice and to make landfall. At this point, to help out, I switched some of my bombers over to bombing over South England just to target the troops, and that seemed to have helped a bit. Alright, so after a few nerve-wracking days or weeks of battle, we finally made landfall. Secretly, at this point, it's over. England is done, they just don't know it yet. But you've got to do some things to kind of ensure that. Here you see me queue up the second invasion force. Don't do that. I realized a bit later I didn't need to do that, but I did it anyways. I'll explain why in a bit. The most important thing you're going to do here is take every goddamn plane you have in your Air Force and move it into this airfield you just secured in London. At this point, you can now have a fleet of 1,000 planes flying over southern England. Complete air superiority over their entire country. And that is the linchpin to holding this, because they're going to throw everything at you to try and move you off that beachhead. So having 1,000 planes above you is just a little bit useful. Important thing here to do with your tactical bombers is do not have them target buildings. Have them target soldiers only, maybe some sea bases, but mainly soldiers. The reason you want to do this is because once you finish this invasion, you do not want to spend the next year repairing everything you've blown up. So move all your planes over here and immediately get them all flying missions over southern England. So at this point, it's going to be bananas. Your navy is going to be just ripped apart. That's fine. Their entire job here is just to be sacrificed to hold the English Channel, to move your troops back and forth. So it's going to be a lot of noise. It's going to be a lot of reports. Don't worry about the reports. Don't check them. It's going to make you sad. Just keep fighting. Take up as much beach as you can. Try and get that second port. The more ports you have, the more supply and reinforcements you can get into England, and that's going to be key. Okay, so at this point, I'm realizing I don't have to move the rest of my troops over 10 at a time via 70-day planned land assaults. Because I own seaports on both sides of the English Channel, I can just move them over willy-nilly. So this is really at the point where I realize, oh, England's effed, because I'm just going to roll them over. I'm going to move 40, 50 units over to them. The initial problem is supply, but just having the superior troops en masse is really what's going to help you in your landing. Alright, so here I'm moving the rest of the troops in. I'm moving pretty much everything I have except for my mountain forces. Eventually they're all going to be in England. We're making a push to secure that northern sea base and then the southern one, and then we're finally trying to get to England. The key thing here is this is ugly. How I did it is probably not the best way. I didn't do battle plans. I was moving just a lot of troops around manually. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but what you can rely on here is just being very well geared. At this point, the German troops are superior, and you've got a nice landfall, and of course you've got that amazing air superiority. A thing you got to do with your air bases is keep creating new wings. Check to see if your factories have pumped out new fighters or close air support, and keep adding them, keep flying them over. So I'm going to speed this up a bit here. You're going to see the initial assault is ugly. I've probably flooded too many dudes over here, so we're having supply problems, and I'm not attacking very smart. I'm attacking for what I want. I'm attacking points that I want really bad, but I'm not doing it in an inefficient way where I should be attacking just weak areas where there's less dudes and trying to encircle them. So finally I get smart and I push south, and I take some of those weaker regions and I grab another sea base, and eventually I'm going to push into that northern one I've been fighting for. And then I just keep pushing and kind of eating up the coast and encircling them in like a reverse C. At this point I'm just throwing everything at them. I'm pushing. It's not great. We're losing dudes, not at like a crazy rate, but it's not going well for us. We're not very well supplied, but we're just throwing everything into taking London. Alright, and so here we get that very satisfying The Fall of London pop-up, and this is kind of it. Once London's done, you'll see I'll check the score here to see how close UK is to capitulating, and it's a massive chunk. At this point we're able to clean up a bit. I've set the horsey dudes that I brought over, they're set to garrison now, because there's going to be some uprisings, so the horsies are taking care of that. And here I just set up my lines, and we just start a very slow but purposeful push north. At this point, England's kind of done. There's still troops and they're still going to fight us off, but we've got over 50 battalions here now, and we're just pushing north. So I'll speed it up again, and you just see Germany's just gobbling up everything now. We're pushing them all the way up. Once you get up to Glasgow and Edinburgh, that's kind of the point where England throws in the flag. And there you go. One of the most satisfying things you're going to see. The UK has capitulated, and it's not even 1938. So a very important thing to do here once you get into the treaty stage and start basically claiming all of the UK. What I forgot to do in the very first game I did this in is I forgot to puppet the British Raj. If you don't do that, they just become a separate entity. They're not a big threat to you, but you lose out on all the resources they have. So puppet them and then start eating up the territory. And there you go. It's November. It's November 1st, 1937, and your biggest initial threat is gone. There's some ways you can go from here. Like I said initially, you can target the states. You can do that via territory you've taken in eastern Canada, in Labrador. You could build that up with naval bases, air force, all that stuff. Take over Canada and then move into the states if you want. Or you can just play the European game and focus on the rest of Europe and Russia. So there you go. There's UK. There's the UK taken over in the first 2 years. Like I said, I didn't invent the strategy. I'm not that great. I found the strat on the Basic Hearts of Iron wiki. Like I said, it was kind of vague, and I needed to see it in action. And I think some things have changed in future patches to kind of weaken some of the strategies in there. So if you like that, I think we've actually got some more Hearts of Iron on the way. Myself and Joe recording a series. It's not quite as aggressive as this was. Also, check out our best of Civ videos if you're into that. Anyways, this is Josh from 1047. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.